Welcome to Morgan's video blog, Morgan's online blog in video format. Today, I'm here to talk to you about, so you finished your rough draft, now what? NaNoWriMo is over, and with it, the urgency for many writers seems to dissipate with the start of December. For me, the first week of December is often time to catch up on all the chores I let slide while struggling to get my words in. This year, I'm also adjusting to a new sleep schedule for the new job that I started last week of November, and prepping my home for the Christmas holidays that I celebrate. So, what are the next steps? Well, the next step depends on you. What do you want to do next? So, first, you should probably take some time off. In years past, I've taken all of December off and started back on my work in progress in January. For many of us, family obligations or kids on breaks really make December a hard time to start new habits or even keep up with the old ones. Be kind to yourself and give yourself permission to take the month off or however long you need. Or maybe to only work on your novel when you have free time rather than trying to schedule everything around it. December can be really hard. Maybe you just need an afternoon off. Maybe you only write during NaNoWriMo. Most of us, though, fall somewhere in between. Figure out what's right for you and give yourself permission to take that rest. Second, decide what your next project should be. NaNoWriMo has a traditional goal of 50,000 words in 30 days. Not everyone follows those goals, but they're there if you want them. But November is over. That means it's time for you to decide what you should work on next. One of the options, finish your novel. So if you were writing a rough draft in November, whether you won or not, it's likely that you didn't actually finish your story. Some of you wrote 50,000 words, which is awesome. Some of you wrote 100,000 or 500,000 words. Some of you, like me, barely squeaked out those 50,000 words. And some of you, well, you've made progress. You put words on paper and you've got way more words than you started November with. Be proud of yourself. But modern novels, at least YA and adult novels, typically are longer than 50,000 words. Usually they start at 65,000 words, and the more fantasy things with a lot of world building can be as long as 120,000 words. So there's a good chance that your story isn't done yet, in which case your next project might be just finishing writing the story that was your NaNoWriMo project. Another option is to edit your novel. Perhaps you're like me this year, who, for the first time ever, I managed to finish my rough draft during NaNoWriMo. Yes, it's like 50,600 words, and it's probably going to need to have a lot added to it, but I finished the story. Maybe you wrote more words. Maybe you've decided that you've written a novella and you're okay with that. Either way, it probably shouldn't see the light of day or even the eyes of a supportive alpha reader, a pre-beta reader, before you've done a careful read through and edit. While gunning for word count and trying to skip editing and ignore your inner editor, writers often end up with confusing word choices, sentences out of place, and plot holes you could drive a tank through. If nothing else, do a line edit to make sure that your story is readable, and if possible, do a light revision, checking the pacing, verifying the story order makes sense, and minimizing those plot holes. A third option, start something new. Maybe you're sick and tired of that novel from November. The deadlines and panic, or even the story concept itself, have sucked the enthusiasm and joy from the story for you, leaving a lifeless husk of a story on your hard drive. Maybe you push the NaNoWriMo inhibition limits and are left with something you never want to look at again. Maybe you didn't even NaNoWriMo. Maybe you need a break. In any of these cases, were there any other story ideas that started flirting with you? Maybe trying to distract you from your NaNoWriMo story? Or any ideas you've had rolling around in the back of your head for days or weeks or years? If so, go ahead. Now could be the perfect time to give them life. A fourth option, finish something old. Did you abandon or neglect an older project in favor of your new and shiny project for NaNoWriMo? Or purposely choose to take a break for NaNoWriMo so that you could come back to it fresh? Maybe NaNoWriMo had nothing to do with it, but you've still got an old story sitting in a drawer somewhere. Now could be the time to pull it out, reread it, see where it's at, and decide, is it worth saving? What does it need? Massive revisions, line edits, the ending rewritten, a new first chapter and a coat of paint? Decide. So those four options are finish your novel, edit your novel, start something new, or finish something old. So now that you've made your decision, what's next? Step 3, set achievable goals. So now you've decided what you're working on next. How do you find that momentum you had during NaNoWriMo? You set yourself some achievable goals. For either finishing your novel or starting something new, outside of NaNoWriMo, I typically set a smaller goal than 50,000 words. Obviously, your goals should be based on your life, your writing speed, and your availability. Personally, I've aimed for 10,000 words per month before and found that actually a bit short. As soon as I started to get in the writing flow, I'd be basically done with my words for the week. 20 to 25,000 words was a manageable goal with downtime but steady progress for me. And it gave me time where I could take a couple days off if I needed to. If you're editing or finishing something old, well, personally, I spend a lot more time editing than I do writing, but I typically aim for 10 pages per editing session. And there have been some evenings I've managed to get 3 editing sessions in. And there have been times I've managed to get 1 editing session in a whole week. But maybe you don't want to just dive in. Don't forget to take the time to plot. Just because you're not getting through pages or metrics doesn't mean that part isn't important. Planning can help. Even you pantsers, after you've written the story, you can go back and plan it out. It's okay. We won't take away your pantser title. So go through your novel, maybe summarize each chapter and look at the big picture. How's the pacing? Are there plot holes? Sometimes you just need a break from it all, and that's when I like to take time off from story editing and just do search replace style editing, where I look for crutch words like very or just, or passive voice, where you've got the to be verbs am, is, was, were, be, being, been, and I search my document for them and I try to replace them with stronger verbs. Note, I try to have my count for every overused word. I don't try to just cut them out of my novel entirely. So I like to keep track. Metrics help inspire me. If that works for you, then there's my suggestion for you. So those are the 3 steps. Take a break, pick a direction, and set achievable goals. So you might be wondering, what's Morgan gonna do? Well, shortly before NaNoWriMo, I got the most treasured of rejection letters. on my novel Flesh and Ink. That rejection letter that came with feedback that I have a good idea of how to implement. It's like the holy grail of rejection letters. So my plan for this month is to write a new first chapter and edit the old first chapter to work with it. So it's now going to be a second chapter. Beginnings are hard. Pacing is tricky, and since my story is fantasy, it's hard to set up a scene, describe the stakes and consequences, and introduce you to the characters and the world without it feeling like I'm cramming everything in and sprinkling info dumps on top. So I've got my work cut out for me. Well, wish me luck and best of luck to you on your next project. Feel free to take a break though. I'll see you next week.